Hey everyone, I know that today is going to be a good day because I'm wearing my cute fox t-shirt, and so what could go wrong? I'm Eric from Lonesome Reader, and I'm going to talk to you today about exciting new books being published in June. These are all books that I was kindly sent by publishers and that I'm really interested in reading, and there's a lot of them, so I'm going to get right in talking about them. Look at all these books! They say that it is summertime and it's time to read. The first is one that's being published in America by the Mysterious Press, but I'm going to talk about it here because it is by the genius, the incomparable Joyce Carol Oates. It is a new book of short stories called Dismembered. These are stories of mystery and suspense. Joyce Carol Oates is so good at writing these psychological thrillers in a way which is so inventive and compelling. It's sort of like the old Hitchcock mini mysteries. The Alfred Hitchcock Presents show created these stories which just sort of played with your mind, and Joyce Carol Oates stories in this genre do the same thing. They are so clever and creepy. A new Joyce Carol Oates book is always a cause for celebration, even though she publishes a new one almost every month. The rest of the books are all ones that are being published in the UK for the first time in June. This is A Boy in Winter by Rachel Seiffert. It's being published by Virago. I think Rachel Seiffert is such a wonderful writer. I've read her novels In a Dark Room and The Walk Home. Her novel The Walk Home I thought really deserved a lot more recognition. It didn't get talked about very much when it came out, but I thought it was a beautiful book. It was one of my favorites of the year. This novel is about a morning in 1941 in a small Ukrainian town, and it's weeks after the German invasion. She follows what happens in the few days following that. I don't know much more about it, but she's an amazing writer, so I'm so eager to read this. And I've already planned to read it as part of this mini book club I have with these two wonderful women called Antonia and Claire, and we meet up every I don't know, 5 or 6 months and talk about a book and have lunch and just chat about it. We always have really different views, so it's going to be an interesting discussion, I'm sure. Goodbye Vitamin by Rachel Khong. This is published by Scribner UK. It's about a woman named Ruth whose life is falling apart. Her relationship is breaking up and her father has come down with Alzheimer's, so she moves in with her mother to help care for him, and they try to find a treatment which will help him through this. It sounds like a really emotional and moving novel. Familiar Things by Hwang Sok-Yong. This is published by Scribe UK, and this is a beautiful cover, isn't it? It's really cool. This is a South Korean novel about a mother and son who are forced to go live on the outskirts of the city in this landfill site, which is, I think, ironically called Flower Island, and the mysterious and fantastical things that the boy discovers there. It has a quote on the back from Deborah Smith, who is the translator of The Vegetarian, and she says that Hwang Sok-Yong is one of South Korea's foremost writers. And I've been wanting to read more books in translation, so I'm really eager to read this. The next is a very exciting book, which I've talked about before in a previous video when I went to see Arundhati Roy read from this new novel, her first novel in ages. It is The Ministry of Utmost Happiness, and it is being published by Hamish Hamilton. It looks like a long, sprawling, fascinating novel. I am a bit nervous about this because I've heard slightly critical things. I'm slightly nervous that it might be one of those novels that has just been worked on for years and years and so has become a bit of a mess. But she is such a brilliant writer that I'm so excited to give this a try. A Book of Untruths by Miranda, Doyle. This is published by Faber. It's a book which tells snippets of the lies which have been told in this family. And I think that's a really interesting way to construct a memoir by talking about the things which aren't true in a family, the sort of mythology that we create about our own families, about ourselves as a family unit. I think this is a cool, clever cover, and on the back of it you can see a photo and this note which the author's mother wrote to her, which says, "You have my full permission to write anything you want, Mum." So I think this is going to be a really compelling and intense story. Conflicts of Interest by Terry Stiastny. Stiastny. This is published by John Murray. It's about a war correspondent who retires and goes to live in France, but a friend of his comes and convinces him to try to go back to work, to go to the Congo and report about what's happening there. So I think it's about the degree of responsibility we feel to tell the truth, to be a witness to what's happening in the world. It sounds like a strong, relevant novel, and this is a proof copy, so this is what the actual finished copy is going to look like. Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. This is being published by Faber. It's about a group of friends who meet up in person and online to discuss topics as varied as sex and friendship, art and literature, politics and gender, and of course one another. I'm particularly keen to read this book because she's a new Irish author, and the back of the book comes with a string of blurbs from Irish authors that I really love, including Sarah Baum and Colin Barrett, Lisa McNerney and Gavin Corbett. Gavin Corbett is a wild, wonderful writer, and he says that Conversations with Friends is the most sophisticated and perceptive novel I've read about relationships in the 2010s, an essential read from an astonishing new talent. Next is a lovely book, A Secret Sisterhood. It is being published by Aram Press. It is by Emily Midorikawa and Emma Claire Sweeney, and it has a foreword by Margaret Atwood. And it is about the hidden friendships of Austen, Bronte, Eliot, and Woolf. This sounds like such an amazing book for book lovers. I'm gonna read you the description because it sounds so good. Drawing on letters and diaries, some of which have never been published before, and new documents uncovered during the author's research, the creative connections explored here reveal Jane Austen's bond with a family servant, the amateur playwright Anne Sharp, how Charlotte Bronte was inspired by the daring feminist Mary Taylor, the transatlantic relationship between George Eliot and the author of Uncle Tom's Cabin, Harriet Beecher Stowe, and the underlying erotic charge that lit the friendship of Virginia Woolf and Catherine Mansfield, a pair too often dismissed as bitter foes. Does that not sound amazing? And look at this lovely shiny cover. So next is an exciting new series of books being published by Vintage. They're doing these things called Vintage Minis, which are these very colorful short books, all by like famous authors on particular subjects. So I have some examples here, like About Drinking by John Cheever, Language by Xiaolu Guo, Liberty by Virginia Woolf, and Eating by the goddess Nigella Lawson. Nigella Lawson is obviously an amazing babe, but she is so intelligent and funny and witty and interesting too. So I think this is going to be a really beautiful and fun series. There's also books by authors like Julian Barnes, Jeanette Winterson, Haruki Murakami, Salman Rushdie, Joseph Heller, Toni Morrison, all the famous ones. So they're going to make great short reads. The First Day by Phil Harrison. This is published by Fleet. It's first set in Belfast, and it's about a pastor and family man who meets a young woman who is studying Samuel Beckett. It's about the scandal of their relationship and a son they have, and then it moves to 30 years later when the son is living in New York and still haunted by the scandal. So I think this sounds like a really powerful Irish novel. The Answers by Catherine Lacey. This is published by Granta, and this has such an intriguing story. I'm gonna read you the blurb about it. Mary is out of options. Estranged from her family, plagued by debt, and beset by phantom pain, she signs up for the Girlfriend Experiment, a mysterious project masterminded by a famous Hollywood actor who, frustrated by romantic and creative failure, hires a collection of women to fulfill the different roles of a relationship. Mary is to play the emotional girlfriend alongside a maternal girlfriend, a mundanity girlfriend, an anger girlfriend, and of course an intimacy team. Each woman has her debts and her difficulties, her past loves and her secrets. As Mary and the actor are drawn ever closer together, the nature of the experiment changes, and the girlfriends find themselves exposed to new perils, foremost among them, love. Doesn't that sound wild? This is really gay, but this reminds me a bit of that Barbra Streisand movie, The Mirror Has Two Faces, where she tries to just have have an intellectual marriage with this man rather than a romantic one. You know that's gotta go wrong and can't work. The Lie of the Land by Amanda Craig. This is published by Little Brown. I have something of a personal relationship with Amanda Craig. I loved her novels In a Dark Wood and Hearts and Minds, but Amanda Craig sort of reached out to me when back years and years ago when I was writing reviews on Amazon in the way of, you can just write sort of customer reviews of books. And I would write really long reviews of books there, of course. This was before I started my blog. And Amanda Craig actually reached out to me and offered to send me a book. And that had never happened before. So I really appreciated her confidence in me and her appreciation that she showed for the reviews that I wrote. So I'm really excited about this new book, The Lie of the Land. It's about a couple who decide to divorce, but they can't quite afford to divorce completely. So they move to the country to cheaper accommodation to live there with their children. And it's about the contrast between this country life and the city life and the financial burdens that they face. In Every Moment, We Are Still Alive by Tom Malquist. This is published by Seiffert. It's about a man whose wife is pregnant and she's rushed to the hospital when she comes down with flu. She has her baby, but the doctors can't save her. So it's about those first years of a father trying to raise his baby on his own. It sounds like a devastatingly emotional novel, and it has a beautiful cover. The Secret Life by Andrew O'Hagan. These are actually 3 essays published by Faber. And Andrew O'Hagan was actually hired by Julian Assange to write his autobiography, so it's about his experience ghostwriting for him. But then it's also about 2 other cases of the sort of digital life, about online life, and how that affects our perception of identity. These sound really compelling. Kingdom Cons by Yuri Harara. This is published by And Other Stories. It's a short book, and it sounds like such a fun story. In the court of the king, everyone knows their place. But as the artist wins hearts and egos with his ballads, uncomfortable truths emerge that shake the kingdom to its core. Part surreal fable and part crime romance. It's about the price of keeping your integrity in a world ruled by patronage and power. I think that makes it sound a bit like Julian Barnes' novel that he published last year called The Noise of Time, which was set in Russia. So completely different context, but about that, struggle about an artist who is being funded by the government and what effect that has on art. So I'm very eager to get to this. The Things We Thought We Knew by Masuda Snaith. This is published by Doubleday. It's about a young woman living in a council flat who's afflicted with a disease. I saw Masuda Snaith being interviewed about this actually by Anna James from A Case for Books. And it sounds like such a strong novel about the reality of living in council flats, which has a lot of stereotypes attached to it. And it also has a quote from Nikesh Shukla, whose anthology I talked about in my last reading wrap-up video. And he says that it is crystal clear sentences that ooze with texture and nuance, characters that drip with lived experience, an exciting new voice in fiction. This sounds so good. Pages for Her by Sylvia Brownrigg. This is published by Picador, and this is what the finished copy will look like. It's about a woman who's trapped in a very conventional marriage, and she re-meets this woman that she had a relationship with many years ago, and that throws everything into chaos. It says on the back that it's for fans of Patricia Highsmith, and I think we needed a modern Patricia Highsmith, so very eager to read this. And finally, whew, are you still with me? There are 2 books by Maggie Nelson. These are being published by Vintage and Jonathan Cape. In December, I read Maggie Nelson's The Argonauts. She is such an intelligent, fascinating writer who writes about gender and sexuality and modern life in such a inventive way that really nobody else is doing. So these are earlier books by her. The Red Parts is actually a book that she references in The Argonauts. It's about this trial she was following, and it makes her go back and consider a trial her own family was involved in. And The Bluets is about depression, divinity, alcohol, and desire, and the creative relationship she has with famous blue writers. The amazing writer Olivia Lane is a big fan of Maggie Nelson, and I'm I'm a big fan of Maggie Nelson, so really excited to read these. So those are all the exciting new books that are coming out in June. Let me know what you think and what you're most interested in reading. If you click show more below, I'll put the full list of books and links where you can find them. So let me know in the comments below how you're all doing and what you've been reading. I really enjoy chatting with you in there. I'll talk to you again soon. Happy reading, everyone.